Hello.
That should be audio now. Hello, hello.
So good to see everybody.
Hey, Daniel. Thanks for being here with the energy of an alarm. I appreciate that. That is audio. Yes, thank you. So per our little test earlier, I'm not able to watch us as we stream at the same time. So I assume everything's going great and coming through just wonderfully. So let us know if it's not, basically. And we are really excited to be hanging out again on a Thursday, late again.
Yeah, it's
so
a delight.
So having cheers, a little happy hour after happy hour, if you will.
Signature glass of red wine.
Signature glass of wine. The alien has moved to the back corner, you're right. Wasn't he on the Revox?
No, I haven't moved him.
Really? I thought he was on the Revox and then we started recording with that, and so we moved it.
That's potentially... Ooh. That might have happened.
Drink 2 glasses of wine if everything is okay. We'll work on it. Woo, yeah. So this is like what, our 5th. So I should have put that in the title. Episode 5.
Oh, I thought you were talking about our 5 glasses of wine.
Not our 5 glasses of wine.
I was like,
no,
wow,
no.
You've been sneaking.
No, first glass of wine, actually, to be fair. To be completely honest, this is our first glass of wine. Cheers.
Oh, now you're going to, sound like you need to say something like, we only drink when we do the stream.
I wasn't going to say that, but I guess we will now. No, it's definitely part of the whole experience for us is that we're like, hey, let's have some red wine. So I'm not going to lie, we've gotten kind of into the wine. If we want to talk about the wine side of things, the wine side of the stream, we have gone a little bit down a rabbit hole about getting wine because now that it's becoming part of our thing, I don't think I really had wine regularly in my life until this streaming thing. I don't know why we decided we're going to drink wine. And now we're really into it, and now we order it and all those things.
But we you'd think that we order it for quality. No.
A little bit of both, I would say.
But the reason why we order it is to save money.
I want better quality for a lower price. Not because I want cheap, but because I want better stuff that I can't just get at the store. But when you do that, you can kind of get a wholesale price for it. So let's make sure we're clear about that.
You nailed it. I don't know what I was thinking. You got that. You took the words right out of my mouth.
So anyway, I'm watching things on my phone to make sure everything's coming through today. Normally I have it in the background on my screen, but I want to make sure we get the highest quality bandwidth, the most bandwidth out of this today for our guests that we're having. And what are you saying here in the chat? And I think it's going okay. Okay, so we think the wine is classy. Yes, let's invite the internet over for drinks. That's what we're doing. Liberace talking directly into the camera.
From the tub.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the tub, we're in the studio.
We're getting to taste all these different kinds of wine. And also it's appealing to my need to get the most out of anything I spend money on, basically, is my deal. So it excites me. I can't believe we're talking about this. Anyway, it is part of the deal. We have the wine. And this is actually a Chilean wine. This is from Chile, is what I was reading on the bottle. That's all I know. Okay, I don't know anything about wine. I'm just, trying to broaden my horizons. I know. I always think of pairing wine or cocktails with things like movie night, We could present the bottle and explain and show it. Since we are trying to educate ourselves and broaden our horizons, we could share that with you as well. If it's wanted, this is a little wine talk here, wine chat. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. So yeah, before we get too far off course, let's make this about what it really is, right? It's about synth friends.
Yeah.
So far, we're 4 for 4 synth friends.
So there's bound to be somebody who doesn't want to be our synth friend.
So we'll see.
Soon.
We'll see. But this, so who we're hanging out with today is Meagan Jane Marron, who previously went by the artist name Cat Breath, and potentially other names before that, I think, or other projects. And she just had a release on, I believe, an LA-based record label called Delusional Records. And we can talk more about that, which I think we definitely should, and throw some links in the chat. And yeah, so Marie Ann Hedonia, who we became synth friends with 2 times ago,
yes,
connected us and was like, here's someone we can be synth friends with. So we're going to see how it goes. So I'm going to jump into that. And we're going to bring her in. And I'm going to reclaim my host. Okay, let's start this. Okay, and then let me switch over to this and see. Welcome, welcome. You are on the stream. So, yes, thank you for being here. I wanted to clarify, Meagan Jane. How do you want? Just Meagan. Oh, Meagan is good. Okay, great. I forgot to clarify that when we were discussing your name. So let's just start there. The name change, or using your name, or reclaiming your name, or using it and.
Yeah, probably. Well, I'll keep Cat Breath around. So I've been releasing music under Cat Breath for several years now. I've got 3 tapes and a bunch of other stuff. And I don't know, sometimes you need a clean break, sort of. Like, I've got this whole history of, like, I don't know, getting better at music, and had some stylistic changes. So I have a new release that just came out last week, and I thought that was a good opportunity to go with my actual name for a while. And Cat Breath I'll still keep for maybe like more chill stuff that I might release. So mainly going to be using my name going forward, though.
Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense. I do want to say that in the chat, we're getting feedback that our level's really loud and yours is really quiet. And I just want to make sure we get that right before we get too deep. And so I think if we can get more output from you, because I think I have you up all the way on my end. Yes, that is correct. So I'll turn me down a little bit too if we're a little overpowering. But then if there's any headroom that you have, we'll do a little test situation.
Is that any better? Is it still quiet?
It sounds the same to me, but it sounds fine to me. So I just would throw it to the chat to see if people are having a hard time with the levels. Let us know. But for me, my experience is that everything sounds fine. And I'm looking at the levels.
I think my headphones are a little quiet, so she seems quiet to me, but like only because my headphones are quiet. But I could see what people are talking about if.
Here, let's try this again.
It is pretty low on my dB meter.
Here, now let's make us the same, guys.
Okay. Let me know, is this better? A little louder?
Yes. Well,
I just turned his headphones up.
So
I think what I'm seeing here is, it's always hard because I am talking too. So I'm going to try to let just you tell us a little bit about where you're based right now. And we'll use that as a way to get the level to where we want it to.
Sure. So I am currently based in Portland, Oregon. I had also been part of a band up in Seattle for a while, but down here now, and hopefully the levels are better and turn them up. So
I feel like my experience is that it does sound like it's like overdriven. So like it's clipping out. Like maybe it did get a little louder, but it's clipping out for me, and that could be. What do you think that is, guys?
It could be. Okay, I turned the gain down a little bit, so.
It's tricky. It's tricky sometimes because like it's hard. Like whatever's happening for other people on the other side of the stream it could be variable for everyone too. So we always try to do our best, but not drive ourselves crazy, you know, trying to perfect it, because if it seems okay to us and people are saying, yes, you're coming through, then we figure it's probably okay generally for everybody.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's a little better.
Yeah, I think I've been great this whole time.
Well, if we turn us down a little bit.
That's what I also did, and Daniel agreed.
Everybody can turn their volume up. They can turn up.
Yeah. So I think we've toggled and tweaked, and I think we're good. So I think we've covered the basics. You know, what your name is. You have some music projects, that you were in Seattle, now you're in Portland. We used to live in LA and spent time in all the West Coast cities a bunch, because that's a really fun thing to do. Travel up and down the coast and hit all the cities and all the different vibes, specifically music scenes too.
It felt very circumstantial to me, like throughout the process.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, just that, like, we were, you know.
Which aspect was circumstantial?
We were moving based on, like, oh crap, like we have to.
What are you talking about?
Up and down the...
No, I'm saying when we would tour and travel.
Oh, right.
I don't think we were on the same wavelength there for a minute.
I thought you were talking about places we've lived.
No. I was saying because we lived in LA, we have traveled up and down the West Coast playing music or just traveling, because there's so many cities that have such different, you know, experiences for music and also for, like, outdoors stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. Each city has a different vibe. Like, hard to verbalize what the difference is necessarily. But I think Portland and Seattle especially have really robust synth scenes.
Oh, no. Okay, I think what happened is that we were at the end of that first set of time we had for the Zoom call, and I thought we had already passed over it, beyond it, but we were at the end of it. I thought we were at the beginning, we were at the end. So now we're gonna see why that happened, and we're gonna hopefully get all the tech going to work out. So we'll go back to this and wait till Megan is back. That was totally my bad. I for some reason thought that you decided to jump in before I brought you back in, but I didn't clarify that. I didn't clarify it. It's like, that was so my bad. Okay, so let me bring you back. So we're talking to you, but you weren't there. Okay, now you're back. Okay, so yeah, we were kind of just talking about how you said that both Seattle and Portland have robust synth scenes, which is very exciting because when we lived there, it was before that became so robust. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I've kind of seen it. Well, I grew up in Portland, so I've been here forever.
Oh, cool.
I've kind of seen it grow in the last, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years particularly. We've got some good synth stores in town, more good shows, really good kind of community of artists that have really, I think, popped up in the last, 5 to 10 years. So similar thing happening in Seattle as well.
Your audio just got a lot better. I don't know what happened, but...
It does. I think OBS does some funny things with compressing and...
All of a sudden, though, it just got...
Well, like everything...
Did you not hear that?
I did. There was a shift, but I don't know if it was better or worse.
I think
I'm sorry that we keep talking about fucking tech.
Sorry.
But the experiences we had were probably like 5 to 10 years ago. And so it makes sense that crossed time-wise. The thing that you said actually was like, of course, it's if your town gets a synth shop, then, you know, that's a good sign that you're going to have a thriving community. I think I just ripped my headphones
That's the game changer.
I'm sorry. I'm like having more tech issues than I usually do.
Well, that's the thing with these. Like, if you want me to like patch a wall of modular synths, like I'm on board to do that immediately. But
immediately, I'm sorry. For some reason, I keep like rolling over the headphone cord with the chair that I'm in. And that used to be a problem I had all the time. And then we started streaming standing up. And that felt great to me, no chairs. But now I'm back in a chair and I'm rolling over my cord again, so I apologize. No, we are definitely down for a studio tour, explanation of what your setup is, having you make sounds. Like, that's all totally on the table. We don't have
to go
but we also, I was just going to say, but we also usually just hang out and talk. And
I don't have anything. I have everything turned on. Nothing is plugged in.
There you go.
Eye candy.
It's pure eye candy. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that this is like extremely casual and also can be whatever we want it to be. So we generally just hang out and talk. And like the assumption is that like we all have synths. We get it. Like, what else is there to talk about? That's usually what we do.
So it's almost like Synth Friends is more about like...
What if we don't talk about
synth people that happen to become friends over a conversation?
Yeah.
There has to be more than synths.
There's like a pretty big Venn diagram for a lot of other stuff I'm into with the synth. I think there's something like about synths that attracts a similar personality type. So it's always interesting to see what else people have going on also.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that you feel that way, because that is exactly what the premise of this would be.
Right.
So are you also doing live streaming? Because your setup really feels like it's ready for that.
Yeah, here and there. Yeah. And I've tried to build like more of a studio that's conducive for video also. So I'm trying to build the whole lighting setup and better cameras and all of the stuff that goes along with that. Even just, I mean, where I like met most people in the synth community is Instagram, for better or worse.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
It is what it is, I guess. But like being able to make better videos, even for the little, 40-second videos, has gone a long way too. So I've really been trying to like build the studio up to be a little more visual as well.
Mm-hmm.
That has been a huge theme in all of our synth brand conversations. And it makes sense because of what you just said, which is that everyone that we're having these conversations with, we've met from Instagram. So of course we would all have video, because everyone keeps screaming, why aren't you making videos? You should be making more videos. Everything should be video. And you're just like, okay, I guess I'll become a cinematographer.
Right.
As well as a synth person, as well as a musician, as well as an artist, as well as all the things that we do. It's like this pressure to do video. But what's also cool is that like the creativity like goes both ways. So the things people do to make their space like appear a certain way on camera, when it, you turn the lights on and it's just a room, but the way you shoot it, the way you light it, and the things you set up,
it's conducive to like getting into a different, more creative mindset too, right? If you're like in a space that has really good ambient lighting and you've like everything's laid out really nice, you're gonna want to create better and longer stuff probably.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That is so true. I hadn't thought about that we set up our space like this, obviously, to stream, because there's the whole, like, you need the lighting or you're not really doing it. It just, like, feels that way to me. But in reality, I'm like, of course I want my space to feel moody and, like, lit well and inviting and, like, transporting, while I'm in a space that I'm creating in. So it's sort of like this subconscious excuse that I'm really happy about.
You have to have the neon lights, right?
And
that's one of the things I love about Eurorack. Like, I always am attracted to modules that light up, right? I've been guilty of like picking out some purely because they're pretty, and I don't even know what they sound like. So
I mean, you have to decide somehow, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, do you have a Eurorack setup?
I do. Yeah, pretty big one. I've got a couple cases.
Nice.
I played so I've started playing more live shows, and rebuilt one of the cases, the smaller cases, to be more conducive to live stuff, which was a lot of work. That was the first time I'd like torn down both cases and taken everything out and put it back together, and that was a whole afternoon right there.
Oh
yeah.
It's like energetically disruptive also.
Yeah.
It's a big process. You need like to recover from doing that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Wow. So the idea of having what you need on the road and feeling like confident that everything will be okay in that case, and you'll feel all right taking that stuff around with you, is something we talk about a lot.
That's the thing with Eurorack. Yeah, like I want it to be dialed in, nothing, no fluff, really conducive to live stuff, but as small as possible, right? Because it's all very heavy and fragile and expensive. So
Yes.
you only want to like leave the house with what you actually need.
It is. It's the thing that we also talk about a lot, which is that at some point, or there has to be like some kind of a limitation. So like when you were saying that you choose things sometimes just for how they look, it's like, well, cool, because you have to have some limitation, because we can do anything now. Like it feels like it's pretty endless. So the limitations to help you be creative is definitely comes into play with modular.
Well, for some folks, that is. I mean, some people take the macro approach, and just go all out with.
But you still can't have everything.
I've limited myself to 2 cases. Like I'm not, and they're almost full.
Isn't it funny how once you set the limit, all of a sudden, yeah, it's like once you set a limit, you find out how quickly you can fill it, and then you're like, oh, I guess that really should be the limit because I could keep going.
I also have a full case, so I know how that is, and it's fun to like. Actually, I'm delighted that I've filled out my case. Because it's like a nightmare
it's a relief.
have spaces to fill. It can't. It is for me most of the time. Like I just get severe. I get severe anxiety about it.
Gotta put something in there.
Yeah, and it's got to be the right thing. Like what the fuck? Like I'm making like serious life choices.
Yeah.
Here like this is like literally like this thing is going to be with me day in day out. For hour and a half, 2 hours of like. The most stressful times of my life. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you get into the stress too of like, okay, I have like 13 HP left of space. Like, I can't even pick something based on function or how it looks. Like, it's literally how big is the module at this point? Because that's all I've got.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's a really good point. You start playing Tetris, and it can be never ending. So having whatever limitation you pick, I feel like it doesn't matter. You have to find one.
With my format, I only have 1, 2, or a half HP options. Like, so my options are very limited in terms of like what can fit there. But that said, everything in the format is one of those 3 options. So, it makes it so that everything is available, in most, in one of those.
Yeah. That doesn't actually help you as much as a limitation.
Right.
Right. But the limitation is that it's Buchla, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so much available. And there's more like third-party stuff, but like I try to keep my system, as Buchla as possible. I have like, a couple third-party things, but I guess my point was that like, like in terms of fitting stuff in there, it's like, okay, am I going to fit a single space module, a dual space module, or a half space? And do I, that's really the only 3 choices I have. Whereas I remember I've had Eurorack systems in the past, and I remember thinking, it's like there's a lot more, you can have a single space module, you can have a 13, you know what I mean? It's like literally the entire rack could be filled with a module.
There's something, so your case is Buchla mainly. There's something to be said for like an integrated system also. I did not do that And sometimes I wish I had, because I have like a hodgepodge of everything, which is fun, but again, like an integrated system really flows well together too, and that's a little more challenging.
Yeah, so like the first thing that comes to mind is just Tonto, which would be Bill. Where it's in Canada right now, I think. So the big machine that Malcolm. Why can't I think of his last name? Built called Tonto, which we've talked about before.
Malcolm Cecil?
Cecil, thank you. Oh my gosh. I had like every Malcolm running through my head except for Cecil. So yeah, Malcolm Cecil, who passed away recently, built, I guess, I don't know. First, who knows, right? What is first? How do we define these things? But just this giant system of whatever was being built at the time. And he attempted to integrate all of it. So I'm just yelling that at everyone in case you don't know what Tonto is.
I'll have to look that up.
Okay, yeah, definitely a fun journey to go on.
Of Tonto's Exploding Headband, which you may have heard of that.
I think they made 2 albums as Tonto's Exploding Headband with the Tonto machine. In the chat, we have a returning friend, Darukan, who said, rebuilding your setup is also satisfying. That's true. It kind of goes both ways, like the experience of breaking down and rebuilding.
You know what's funny? And like, it is super satisfying. And I want like things to, obviously you want things to flow right and position everything. And then I like to have all of the like modules from a series together. So I just finished rebuilding everything. The case looks good, but then I got another module that fits with ones that I have no space next to now. So it's like, well, I might have to rebuild it again.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's... It's funny because, like, even though, like I said, my options are pretty limited and my case is full,
besides those things,
I'm super OCD about those kinds of choices. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like position of like what modules I want near each other. Like I will rip down the case and spend an entire afternoon rebuilding it without hesitation if I think that the module needs to move. You know what I mean? Like I definitely don't hesitate in that sense. So I get it.
I'm totally gonna do that because I just picked up the last Expert Sleepers analog module.
Oh.
And I don't know if you've seen these, but
wait, I was just looking at those today. That's
yes.
Like, well,
crazy.
this has to go with the other ones, otherwise it's just not satisfying.
I would have no hesitation about it. So I side with you on that decision.
We approve. That's amazing. I was just looking at that today. So that makes a lot of sense. In the chat, adding a new module can make you rethink the ergonomics and placement of all modules in the whole rack. Yeah, exactly. It's funny because we talk about this all the time. It comes up from time to time, but in this specific stream that we've been doing with new synth friends, we have not yet talked about the conundrum of spacing in the case and how to make the decisions of what to have, specifically because of this, like the placement and the ergonomics and everything that Darukan was talking about in the chat.
I try to switch it up, right? Like even if you don't have a reason to, like switch it up, because for me, like when I start making music or a new track, I'm not usually thinking about like, I'm gonna make a new piece of music. This is like the beat or the melody or something. It's more like, I wonder what will happen if I route the signal this way or plug this into this. And like if you rearrange things even visually, like it's like you have to relearn all those connections and rebuild a bunch of new ones, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Do you typically like repatch every time you play?
I do. Well, normally I had dialed in a live setup that was really frustrating because I was playing a show last weekend and had everything built for a couple of weeks beforehand. And it's like I can't change anything because this is like the live thing. But normally, like I start completely over every time I play. Like the last thing I do when I'm done is I pull every patch cable out, usually.
Yeah, I do as well most of the time. But, you know, for similar reasons, like I'll leave a patch up because, you know, like we do like a Twitch performance and I want to like at least take a little like video or something of like this was the patch that I did on this performance, and then so that after I do that I'll usually break it down. You know, but otherwise I like to just, you know, start fresh because for me, if the synth is patched and I'm not like gearing up for a performance like you mentioned, it's like overwhelming. Like I don't want to like fuck with a patch that's already like, you know, put together, in other words.
That's the thing. I think some people can like start with an existing patch and just, you know, change it around. But like, yeah, it's overwhelming. Like I can't, even if I end up patching like the same thing again, I still prefer to start from scratch every time.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that philosophy. And a lot of, you know, I think it's a pretty mixed bag in terms of what people do in that regard. Like I hear it both ways. You know, some people like will have like a bass patch, you know, where they sort of come back to that spot every time they play live or whatever, and then patch out of that.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
Which makes sense. I'm not saying it doesn't.
Well, especially if you want to start your set with a certain vibe and you don't want it to be building from scratch.
I would.
That is your
for me personally. Point, I like would rather rehearse building the same patch over and over again almost than I would just start with the same patch every day, because, you know, it'll do a few things. It'll, every day that I build that patch, I'll actually find that I might patch it slightly more efficiently. You know, like I might actually make a few different moves where I'm, you know, doing the same routing, but like maybe I come about it a different way, because your brain is naturally just gonna try to improve on itself.
Yeah.
And
that's a theory.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. I like it helps that you don't have neglected modules too. Like, you know, like it's easier to see if something's not getting the love that it should if you're starting from scratch every time.
Absolutely.
Really just incorporated in.
Yeah, and because sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say for my live setup, I don't just use Eurorack. Most of the like brains of my setup, I use a Polygon tracker. And that's like the same every time, right? I've got everything dialed in, a whole set. So the Eurorack stuff, there's a little more freedom to change that up every time as well, to a degree, I guess.
Yeah, no, I know. It's almost like that's your constant. And then, you know, your Eurorack system is your variables.
Is your, what, like your guitar?
Yeah, I mean, that's another way of saying it.
Perhaps. You can have it tuned up, though. I don't know. That's not a perfect analogy. Man, yeah, that's definitely one of the subtler things that reminds me of like concepts around deep listening in a way. Sort of having so much familiarity that you can actually see something differently, because you're so familiar with all the nuances of it and the things you can do to pattern interrupt yourself. I like that concept in especially like playing the same instrument in a way, even though it's obviously modular for a reason. It's elemental at the same time and can be pathways created, right?
I like sometimes letting external forces kind of dictate what you do. I mean, it's like I think it's oblique strategies.
Oh, sure.
You know, and then there's a Eurorack specific like deck of cards, the patch game, I think.
Oh, sure.
Where, like, each card is like use gates instead of envelopes, and just like that can make some really bad things, but it can like really get you thinking in a different way also. So it's a lot of fun to play around with.
Yeah, it's also like so important to when we're talking about, right, like we're not just talking about playing synths, we're talking about actually like creating artistic movements and experiences. So the idea that you're spending time doing something that's not for the end result. It's actually for free play and for like creating new pathways and connections for yourself and experiences that you wouldn't have if you're constantly building the same patch and doing the same performance or whatever. Like, not that that's a bad thing either, but
it's a
yeah.
different mindset. Like
Yeah.
I'm a painter also, right? So I do a lot of visual art, and I get into I'm like very like results oriented in that case, like to the point where like I'd established this like whole process for how I create a painting and like follow that like verbatim every single time. And at some point you just have to be like, I need to do something else because it's becoming rote at this point. You know, it's like you're not getting the creativity out of it. It's become a manufacturing process, you know. And the same goes for music, I think.
Yes. Oh, that was so well said.
I remember what I was going to say earlier about when we were talking about patching, but I was going to say like some modules, for example, if you don't start from scratch, you know, like for example, like I know if I'm going to start with a certain module that otherwise might like sort of take up the patch, like almost be like the lead role in the patch, and like without starting with that module, like the patch would never develop in the way that it ends up developing because like that patch is so I can't think of a better word, it, like steals all the attention, you know, from the other modules, you know, kind of thing. You want to highlight a certain module. And so that can be interesting. I mean, that's one of the things about like starting from scratch every time is that like you know, you can start with say like some noise, and that's just gonna like send me down a completely different road than if I start with my most beautiful oscillator.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
And that's good too, because you can really tailor it to how you're feeling, right?
Oof.
Yes, exactly.
My setup is diverse enough that like if I want to do like pretty melody stuff, I can do that. But I have like a lot of really like dirty kind of industrial modules too, so I can go heavier if I want. And I go back and forth because it just depends on how I'm feeling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can totally relate to that because we're doing on Sundays we do sort of an ambient stream that evolved out of just trying to do the most minimal drone possible, and then like we could actually only do that for so long before it started to evolve
into more of a sci-fi soundscape.
Now it's like soundscapes. But even last Sunday we ended up doing more of a dance set, and we just like couldn't help ourselves, and we're like, if we can't do whatever we want in this space, then like there really is no point to anything. So I think the boundaries that we're finding with music that is primarily modular, or that's like the highlight, everyone seems to be like, we don't want those rules. We're good. Let's everybody just keep doing exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, and that's like totally the modular mindset. It's funny because like especially my last release, like it was all about structure. Like I wanted to be it's like very hard, like granular techno sort of. Like I wanted it to be very regimented though, but using Eurorack, which is hard to do sometimes. But sometimes I need I love the experimentation, but like when I'm ready to actually make a track, then I need to start adding some structure to it to be able to
the balance.
get my mind around it.
Do you record like live off of your Eurorack, or do you multi-track, or like how do you record?
Both. I have a really good I can multi-track live, so I have a really good setup for that. So I have multiple channels I'm usually playing. But I'll like multi-track and then, you know, add more and more to it, then add new stuff, and then like I'll record all of my like tracker, or if I'm using another synth, but then I feed all of that back through the Eurorack, like all of the effects and stuff. So it's kind of, I'll record everything, and then once everything's recorded, I'll send it back through the Eurorack for processing generally.
Oh, okay.
It's very sort of lots of passes until I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, that's cool. Like different layers of synth.
And I try to actually play too. I mean, like play keyboards, right? So I've got more traditional synths that I generally will overdub into a track as well.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Sweet. Yeah. Just because we're talking specifically about your work, I'm going to drop your Instagram link in the chat, and if it's going to let me.
Yeah,
And
definitely. Yeah, I'm really excited about my EP that just came out. Like, again, it's like very like not glitchy, but it's very like granular techno. That's kind of what I'm thinking, because like
I
when you
love
use a
that.
tracker, you can get very glitchy with it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also used some like 70s like prog synths kind of over it as well. So it's very,
Ooh.
That sounds
very
awesome. Yeah,
that was a lot of fun to do.
I want to hear it. I definitely
So
want to check it out.
go in your Instagram. You have a link to all your links, and then you can find this new release and anything else. So everybody go there. So give her a follow, and also check out the new EP.
Yeah, you've sold me. Like, I hadn't had a chance to listen to anything yet, so I'm excited to check that out.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm excited to see what people think about it.
Hell yeah. So everyone go listen after this. We'll have a listening party. Because it's exciting that you have something new out. That's always a good feeling.
It's a good feeling, and like I don't know. It's a mixed feeling, right? Like
Yeah.
you release something into the world, and then you're like, okay, like now what?
Now what? Yeah, it's
Out
a different feeling. The feeling you think you're going to have and the feeling you have in anticipation of it, and then the feeling you have once it's out there, are all very different.
Inception is definitely the most fun.
Definitely.
Definitely.
The creation process is a mixed bag. And then, yeah, there's a lot of intermediate feelings along the way. But yeah, once it's out, it's like there's the celebratory feeling, and then there's also, right, like this now what feeling.
Yeah, and it's like, do I like how much do I push it? Like, how much do I market things, or do I just be like, okay, it's out there, it's done, like on to the next thing? And that's a challenge with any release. It's like, how much attention do you pay it when you're done, and for how long too?
Yeah, I feel like that's so different for every release too. I think, okay, I just got the 10-minute warning. We're great. I can relate to that deeply. And I think it usually, I like, similar to talking about gear, it's like there's these limitations you can create for it so that it feels like it has, we've talked a lot about structure too. So I feel like this relates, like you have to create structure because like, isn't that made up anyway, right? Everything, all the structures we have are made up. So you have to give yourself some sort of artificial structure or limitation around that too, because you're always, I feel like then you're sitting with that feeling of either feeling like you did too much or not enough, or not knowing where that line is. And you just have to like make it up for yourself, I think.
Yeah. That's actually why I like the Instagram video format, because it's like, okay, what can I make like in an hour with a video and post and not worry about? And like I save everything, so like I'll release videos for a month or two, and then I'll go back and say, okay, I'm gonna flesh all of these out and then actually build on them. But
wow,
I like the idea of just like forcing yourself just to do something, and if it sucks, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Like no one's watching all 40 seconds of those videos. It's more for you.
Exactly. I do think that I feel that way about Twitch too, is that the sort of heart of what we've experienced and what people keep telling us that the experience should be or can be, is like just show up as you are where you're at and just do the thing, and like it naturally evolves. You naturally figure it out. You naturally improve, and everyone gets to experience that together.
Yeah, and it's
while it's happening live.
Yeah, it's contrived too, right? You're not like,
it is the truth of what's happening anyway.
Yeah.
I just want to say hi to Actitech in the chat for coming through. I think you are in a European country, I want to say. So it's got to be late there. So I don't know if you're still with us, but thanks for saying hi and coming through.
Back to tech.
Act to Tech introduced us to this community of modular synth people on Twitch. So we've been plugged into that community, and it's been just like on another level because we're already experiencing a lot of positivity on Twitch and like a lot of community and stuff, and just that ethos of like don't try to be something you're not, and don't try to like stress yourself out about being at a level that you're not really at. Like that's not what it's about.
Do you do Twitch?
Here and there.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
But it sounds like I need to get into it more.
Yeah.
I love like modular community in general. That's what it is very much like. Yeah, like you start out, people are very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I would say pretty positive and constructive in general, right? Most people are just so like psyched about the gear and music and hanging out, but like people are pretty helpful and nice in general from my experience.
I agree with that. I think specifically modular.
Yeah, specifically modular, I would say.
That's what I would say too.
Yeah.
That's been my experience, and for whatever reason, it's translated to Twitch too. So it's global, and it's global in terms of platforms. Like we talked a lot about Instagram and how a lot of us are there doing the synth stuff, and it's really robust and fun to be connecting with people there and seeing what everyone's doing and how everyone's evolving and what everyone's trying and all that kind of stuff. It's super fun. And then we came to Twitch and we were like, are we the only ones doing this? Like we couldn't find the other modular people for a really long time. And then people started showing up and being like, we're over here. Come join us.
Well, like when you're a part of one of these communities for long enough too, like you see people, it's not just about like you growing and getting better, like you see people because you start to know people for years and you like see them from the very beginning, and then all of a sudden like just to see that growth is really cool.
Yeah, and especially like the things that people are trying or doing or implementing, like even just I was thinking about how Tim Held, who does the Modular podcast, when he started doing those videos where he was outside playing a synth on a car battery, just cause. And it was just so beautiful, and I was like, I do want to see this in my feed. Thank you for randomly doing this. Like, this is for no one. This is for everyone and for no one, right? Like, no one's asking us to do all this.
Well, and that's the thing. And I always say, like, yeah, you spend all this time, but I suppose there are people who listen to it all. But like Tim, I think just did an album recently that has a lot of field recordings, right? It's so cool, like just to see what people are doing and how they're like completely different from the kind of stuff you're working on even. Exactly.
I like the whole range. I think specifically
I just did that with one hand.
I have no idea what you just did, but congratulations.
I put my headphones on with one hand.
Great. You should be proud. That's amazing. You're like, I was slick. And I'm like, okay, sure. If that's important to you. The range of that, I think that's why, because like, I thought maybe musical, like styles of electronic music was the community, but it's actually modular. And the style of music is not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's actually exciting when someone's doing something that you're not doing.
Yeah.
That's what I've been feeling.
And that's the cool thing. Yeah, the culture is around modular, and not even around like, the gear, but it's like, I don't know, the culture itself, the people. But you've got everything, and because this stuff, you can make anything with it.
Yes,
it really is endless.
And there's even people making, like that's even at the like community level, like people making their own stuff.
That's what I love too. It's like, I don't know, like probably most of my modules, like, they're handmade by like one person.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
Where else can you get that? There's something so personal about that that's really appealing.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of weight put on all of us like knowing who the manufacturers are, where they're located, where they're getting their parts, who's making it, like that is just naturally something we all talk about.
Well, it's a touchy.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a touchy subject right now. I mean, I was just reading the intro paragraph in the new Waveform magazine, and it was all about how several companies are going out of business.
Yeah.
And it was just like a really nice, like kind of love letter to those companies, and I would name them, but I don't want to leave any of them out, so I'm not going to, but like I can remember most of them at least. But it is pretty sad, you know. We've talked about a few of them on other episodes, but you know,
because you become like, you know, I mean, having something that someone has built by hand in such a small batch, that's why it's so hard. I mean, obviously there's scale and everything, but it's personal, right? All of it's personal, so it hits a little different.
Yeah, it's a really strange thing to be like, I don't want this to be so hard that people can't keep doing it, but I also don't want it to become what would ruin it. How do we stay in that space?
I don't know enough about the problem, honestly. Like I'm
not the one deciding any of these things, but I'm talking about it, I guess.
Like I work for a small manufacturing company, but like I don't understand, you know.
You're not part of supply chain logistics or
anything. I do not
like
understand that side of things. You know what I mean? Like I definitely don't know much about, you know, what's causing everything.
And that's like everything's so expensive, and it's hard too. I feel like we've seen some big companies who will remain nameless, right? Getting into modular really cheaply, because that's the thing. Like you have to acknowledge it's all very expensive, and there's a gatekeeping that exists that's just inherent in the money situation.
Oh yeah, that's so true.
Expensive. But like, it's special also because it's bespoke. You know, it's like it's a craft and not a product at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's not a luxury price. Just there it goes again. All right, let's jump back in. We always say people are allowed to just not come back if they get kicked off and they don't want to. But we always appreciate if they want to hang more. Yeah, it's because we were talking about how expensive modular is. It was like kicking us out.
It hurt us talking about it.
But I will say, while we're waiting for Meagan to join back in, we're going to do thank you to everyone who followed us because we hit our goal. We went over it, actually. As you can see at the top of the screen, we have a new goal of trying to get to 500, but we're going to celebrate getting to 200 followers with a giveaway on Sunday. So on Sunday stream, when we normally do our ambient stuff, which we most likely will, we're also going to do the giveaway. So you have to be there live to potentially win that. So let's bring Meagan back. Hooray! I saw it, but then I forgot to look again.
I heard me talking about like bespoke craft products, and it's like Zoom's having none of this.
Zoom corporate is watching and does not want this conversation to continue. I know. I was like, it had to be because we were talking about gatekeeping and like the cost of modular. We were getting too close to the truth. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. And it's just a really interesting time because of the kinds of conversations we were having during the pandemic about how everyone was going out and buying all of the gear. And then all of a sudden, everyone kept saying, it's going to change. There's going to be supply chain stuff. There's going to be chip shortages. There's going to be all these things. And now we're living in that. And it's like, okay, what now?
And I'm right there with you. Like when I started quarantine, had mainly Ableton based, right? I had some vintage synths, but all of the modular stuff, most of the hardware is a product of quarantine for sure. And that's not unique, I'm sure, but
I mean, we all had to be doing it for it to be like a run on gear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, having like, I don't know, being at home more,
Hmm.
there's more time to dedicate to weird, eccentric stuff in general, right?
Oh, the idea of like what mattered and like what I should be doing and how I feel. I mean, just ooh, totally different people. Like I I remember feeling like this like is different. This is a different experience of life that I couldn't have had if this wasn't happening. But I thought I would continue to feel the way I did during like, the intense isolation. And like now for some reason, like it just sort of subtly has felt kind of like, oh, okay, that's right. There are a lot of complex problems, not just, this, and like nothing got resolved. And now we're just living in more mess of what was happening. So yeah, it was just really weird to go through a time when we felt like the way we talked about things was different because of the nerves it was hitting on and just the priorities that we had. And I just feel like the decision making was so odd because you couldn't plan for things. You didn't know when live shows were going to happen again. And so it was like, do I go all in on just like I live in my house now and never leave? Do I like try to live in the uncertain, unknowable present and like just take it one day at a time? Do I try to get the gear? Like, will it all be gone? Like, we didn't know how to act. So we just did everything, I feel like.
The cool thing, like,
I feel like that took me a year to get to that point. Sorry.
well, like, I found this whole community, right?
Right.
And, like, from the gear, like, you got into synth music, you got into synths, and you find all these people. And the cool thing is, like, those relationships still exist, like things are different now. People are not as hermetically sealed, but
right.
It's cool that these communities are still, I think, still growing and still providing, value and camaraderie and everything, even now, right? As things are
that is
another weird whatever phase.
Exactly. I think that's such a good point that when this inevitably happens when we're on a live stream, I'll like spiral into like dark COVID thoughts and I'm like, where did that come from? But when I look at it positively, I'm excited that the things I wanted to happen faster are happening that way, that like we all got online and learned how to use all these things so that we could stay connected because we had to, and now we're still using them. Because like I'm very, want things to be as accessible as possible, and I feel like the internet, for all its flaws, can make a lot of things more accessible, like this conversation we're having right now, physically, but also for like different kinds of experiences other than just let's film the live show that's happening, right? It's not even that. It's like creative approaches to doing things online.
It's almost like simultaneously more and less personal, right?
Yeah,
there's more
exactly.
anonymity. But like a lot of people I know who I'd consider like really good friends in this community, I've never met in person.
That's exactly why we're doing this.
But it doesn't matter, right?
Yes, exactly. So like some people we know, it's like that's part of it, is that like we wouldn't ever meet in person. But then there's this other side of us that was like, well, we can always do this. This is still like more connection than typing to each other. So that was kind of our theory, was like, if we try to take the people that, especially during that real intense time that made us all get more online, we did have this explosion of connection with people over Instagram and things like that. And now this is like our version of like starting to leave the house again, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like, well, what if we actually face-to-face hung out with people and met them and like put a face to the name and online interaction and took it to the next internet level?
Well, and sorry.
On the Instagram community, like you get really familiar with people's hands. That's like the vantage.
Yes.
That it's nice to actually see someone's face sometimes.
Oh my God, I hadn't thought of that. You're right. I probably know people by their hands more than their face. Or like the camera angles they use, or, the way their videos are styled. That's such a good point. Oh my goodness.
But that's also an interesting way to engineer your shot. It's like, what do you want to be known for?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to be recognized by? That's how you engineer your shot.
Definitely.
Yes,
I don't feel good about my decisions I have going on right here at all. Actually, I actually feel really shitty about my choices in that regard.
Are you being serious?
Yeah.
Oh
like,
no.
Taking my own advice.
It's a work in progress. Like, my setup is like, I don't know, my desk is facing in a way that doesn't make sense if you were just working at the desk. But if you're filming stuff, then it's like, well, that makes sense.
That's a good point. That's
Gotcha.
we have that going on as well. You're like, this is set up this way. It's so inconvenient and not efficient and not conducive, but that's how I would film it. Absolutely. I just want to shout out the chat again. Daniel, I appreciate you hanging on with my like very rambling conversation about quarantine and capitalism. Appreciate the support in the chat. And Darukan, I didn't realize that you came from...
I accept your hug.
This show that we were on as guests called Quarantina Palooza. That they did, it was like another thing that came out of like, well, what do we do? You know, how do we stay connected? How do we keep meeting people and building community and not feel the crushing weight of this isolation? That person actually found out about us from that and now is here. So that's very cool, Darukan. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing. Not everyone tells you how they found you, you know.
The stakes are different too. Like, I don't know, in-person things, there's a for me anyways, there's a level of anxiety of like going to live, just meeting people in real life, right? It's like a whole different social dynamic.
Totally. Oh, well, one thing I was going to say earlier, and this is might be a good time to say it, is that like there's this idea of this interaction probably would be less likely to take place had we have scheduled it in person in the same town.
Definitely. Something would have come up, right?
Something. Yeah. I just feel like it would be so much less likely for whatever reason. Yeah. Not saying any, no shade.
Yeah, no personal reasons, just because life can be so hard out in the world. And there was previously not a lot of space. This is all me projecting my own life onto everything, but we obviously didn't have space for like, hey, I think I need to take a day off. I need a nap. I need a break. It was not, the system had never been ground to a halt like it was. So that was definitely another side of what's come out of it, is that I feel like I have more energy to connect with people because I know how to prioritize my time and energy a lot better because we got forced to to focus on that.
And you just try to keep that with you. It's funny. I hung out with a bunch of friends yesterday and had this type of conversation in person.
Wow.
And it's like, it had been so long since that had happened, right? And because it's always like, I don't know, it's more, there's always an agenda. Like you're meeting someone to go to a show or you're getting coffee or something, but just to have like a meandering conversation in person was really
probably pretty taxing.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah, it just hits differently.
Yeah, it does.
I can totally imagine that.
Makes you very aware of it now too.
We keep talking about the idea of like someday going out on the road and playing a bunch of shows, and like the reality of that kind of frightens me. Like just the idea that like of going out and being out in the world and like, being in those sorts of conditions every single day for a while, like I'm like, damn, like
well, it kind of loops back to what you put in your
that's
case.
That's a lot.
Very, and all the overhead, it's very tiring.
Oh, yeah.
In Seattle last Saturday, and there's like you have to pack it's like there's so much to pack and unpack and set up, and I don't know.
We talk about this like the one-off show.
Exhausting.
Yeah, like doing a one-off show is so much more exhausting. it's like totally rips you out of, you have to completely prepare for it and recover from it. Whereas if you do like a stretch of shows, I feel like you can spread some of that out.
Tasks are batched.
And
like things can be a little more compartmentalized.
It becomes your routine versus like, I'm going to go do this one show, rip myself out of my routine, and then have to recover and come back to it.
Yeah, definitely. And like the routine, I always think like, oh man, like I'm just getting old. Like this is hard to do.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
We talked about Suzanne Ciani, I think, last time we did this. So I forgive me if I bring up the same stuff all the time, chatters. But we were talking about how many people there are, specifically I think this was Gus's point about how he's happy that we're in this modular synth community where like you don't like age out.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it also makes me feel like, but what if I want to age out? What if I'm tired?
Then you can.
But there does seem to be like, obviously, less, I guess, ageism, if you will.
I think that's totally true. More than any other like music culture I've seen.
Yeah.
You know, I've been part of like goth scenes and industrial scenes, and those are pretty, like, there's a wide range of ages there.
I would expect that, yeah.
But just because the age of the music, I mean, like...
Of the, like, yeah, who's making that music and who's a fan of it, yeah.
But Modular, like, runs the gamut from everyone, ages, gender, you know, whatever.
Yes.
Which is really cool.
That's such a good point. We went to, like, something that we thought was cool that was about, like, electronics, like, you know, wearable art and, like, interactive electronic
Maryland
components.
Thing.
Yeah. And it was like children to 90-year-olds, you know? And we were like, oh, shit, this is so cool.
Definitely. I love that they're like making synths for children now. Like the box. That's so cool.
Yeah. Because, I mean, why not, right? I think
we were talking to
kids understand it maybe better than we do even.
Our last guest we nicknamed Synth Dad.
Oh yeah, that's right. We were talking our friend Kyle, who is also uses Buchla, and I was like, you know, he was talking about how he felt bad for his kid that he had to hang out with his parents, you know, all through quarantine. And I was like, but you're a synth dad. Like, isn't that cool? Aren't you like the cool dad? And he was like, no, my kid like just dogs me.
He's like, oh, you're playing with the knob. You're playing with your knobbies again.
Yeah, just like gives him so much shit. Cause he's like, it's not cool, dad. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy to me.
But if you think about it, like, yeah, dude, I could totally imagine how, like, if I saw my dad twiddling these knobs, I would be like, you're such a fucking dork, dude.
But that's the cool thing, because it's not. I mean, in a way, right? It's so, like, we're in a niche of a niche of a niche culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what's cool about it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's that
the
he's...
uncoolness, in a way.
Yeah, the uncoolness is cool.
Sure.
I think his kid's at that perfect age where he can't admit that his parents are cool or he would die.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter what he's doing. I'm in the good position of being an aunt.
Oh.
So I recently sent my niece some synthesizer, like some just little like pocket operator stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna try to be like the cool aunt and get my niece like really into making music. And then it's like, hopefully maybe she doesn't think I'm a cool aunt. I don't know. She might think I'm really lame, but
I doubt it.
You have that different leverage, you know? It's like, I'm so into this that I want to like see if I can plant a seed, you know?
Absolutely.
Family member.
That's super cool.
You just never know. But I think that the level of curiosity that I expect kids have and the level of like approachability that some of those devices have that makes you go, ooh, this isn't outside of my, like, this isn't like dangerous or weird or confusing. I want to grab it, touch it, play with it, twist it, you know.
I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I would just be attracted to whatever the household instrument was. Like if a house had an organ or a piano or something like that, like I'm definitely
A bright bass. Could be anything.
You know,
trombone.
Maybe a synthesizer, but I didn't ever experience that. But like I would just play with it. You know what I mean? Like I would.
You would be found
messing around with that device, whether I had permission or not.
I resisted it because my brother was a musician in the house growing up, and he's 4 years older than me, and I was like, I don't want to do the thing that my brother's doing. So like, I didn't get started in music until well into college years, because it's like it was a thing that my brother did, so I needed to do something else. But then, and he was like more into like guitar and sax and pianos and stuff. But then I discovered synthesizers, and my first synth was my first real synth was a Juno 6, and then that was the
amazing.
End.
That is, that's the beginning and the end right there.
It's a great one. You picked a good synth.
Yeah, you fell right into the perfect synth.
I did. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know how. I mean, this was in like 2005, 2006.
Oh.
It's a good time to get vintage synth.
That's one of the best years in indie music.
I had a lot of vintage synths at that point as well.
It's a good time to get into synths.
Yeah, I didn't get into modular until like 2010, somewhere around there.
I didn't until 2020, like late 2020. Like I'm real new to modular stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
I've been trying to use, like I have quite a few vintage synths, but I try not to collect them, right? Like I just want to keep like what I use.
Yeah.
That's so hard.
It's hard.
Preaching to the choir here. I try not to have any wasted space or gear or anything that I can't justify.
Yeah. It's hard.
Using.
Yeah.
It's hard.
The only like one synth that I will like rarely ever use, and it's like 80 pounds and ridiculous, is this one right here.
We're getting a synth show.
Early Casio.
That's
oh my god, I was just gonna say.
301.
It's
like all analog. It sounds really good. But it's literally like, I don't even know, like 70 pounds. It's ridiculous.
If you could have seen my thought bubble when you started talking about vintage synths and like which ones to keep and sell, my thought bubble was literally my wood paneled Casio.
Yeah, they're so like, they're so classy.
I had mine for so long, and I recently got rid of it, but I'd carried it across the country so many times, you know, just like, I can't ever get rid of this. And then one day it was finally like, I'm not using it enough.
Yeah, and mine just sits in the corner, like, it's like, I don't have it, like, I don't have a need for it, because I can reproduce anything with something else. I do like the drums on it, though. That's one thing.
The drums are so good. I know. I miss those drums.
It's like a Roland CR78.
Yes.
It's like very
exactly.
Good sound, I think.
Yes, that was my the keyboard for a really long time, and I don't really miss the sounds, but I miss the drum machine and I miss the feel. It has a very special feel that's like, it evokes something out of you. It's like, this is what I do. Don't try to fuck with me.
You wrote so many songs on that thing.
I did. Yeah, it was my main thing. I never thought I would ever get rid of it. I think it was just modular always kind of comes in there and goes like, no, I'll be good to you.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Like, that's why, like,
and they're big and heavy.
It's so heavy. That particle board, like that 80, it's so heavy.
Yeah, it's no joke. But it was touted as, like, when you look back at the ads for Casio, it's all like, anyone can have this. You can carry it around. The most new portable thing. And you're always like, okay, sure.
But what do you think about it? Like the Juno, like when the Juno came out, the Juno 6 in the early 80s, around the same time as that Casio, like, I don't know, it's like $4,000 or something.
Yeah.
Like, no one can get that.
Right.
Mhm.
So Casio's filled a niche for sure.
Oh,
I had a
absolutely.
ton growing up too.
Yeah, there was. I mean, the '90s Casio era was strong. The hold that it had, it was sort of like synonymous with a keyboard.
Yeah, I always tried to circuit bend them, and
Mm-hmm.
like I've killed
Yes.
a lot of Casios.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I used the Casio as a MIDI controller. That was like my first MIDI controller because I started doing music production a long time ago now, like in the early 2000s.
What is time?
And so for me, it was just using a Casio as a MIDI controller and using Reason. That was all I did back.
I mean, it's
started.
really all you need at the end of the day. But
yeah, I mean, you could still get by with just that, but
I just I'm pretty new to DAWs too. Like I did everything like up until a few years ago, kind of using 4-track. But maybe 5 years ago, I started using Ableton, and that's when I went from being very casual and kind of fun thing to do every now and then to being pretty serious. Was just the doors that Ableton opened up, because I'd
yeah,
never really used a DAW. It's like, this is amazing. You can do everything. And then you do modular, and it's like that times a million also.
yeah, those two things hand in hand have changed the game, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to combine them, right? I
Mhm.
use them in, I have a pretty hybrid setup usually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, these days, we record to tape. We use the DAW mainly just to do some final mixing, mastering type tasks. I try to. For me, I just have a lot more fun with hardware in terms of
Yeah.
the actual stuff making the sounds.
The experience of playing,
And as we get more into the idea of videoing stuff and everything, it's it's much easier to show something that lays flat on the table than it is to show what I'm doing on my screen.
That's totally, yeah. And I always think back to Instagram. It's okay, I made this really cool little jam in Ableton. It's how are you gonna film that is not just, you could do I'll just film some trees blowing in the wind or something
That's a good point,
no one wants
though.
to look at your Ableton screen, really, unless
That's
it's a tutorial or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's exactly right. I've actually not been able to piece that together fully, but realized now that's what's going on. It's anytime I want to do that, I realize it just doesn't translate unless I specifically have something I'm showing a tutorial about. It does not translate. But that idea of just put it to some visuals, because it's not necessarily about the music, for the platform, right? Because we keep talking about Instagram, because that's where we get, stay connected with everybody. Obviously it's this. I feel dumb even having this thought, and I can't believe I'm going to say it out loud. That Instagram is a visual experience, so you're telling a story with the music visually, and so we do have to play these two roles of, we're creating something, we want to share it with people, but we have to fit it into this template that it can be experienced.
Yeah, and Modular is so photogenic. I have family members that are I don't know what that is or what you're doing, but it looks really cool.
That's a really good point. It's
everywhere.
Just this idea that we're all kind of drawn to Instagram, but Instagram's also kind of pushing this on us, but we all like it. It's very, I haven't really thought about this way before. And it's so obvious, but it's also very intricate, because we're giving this information to the platform. And it's feeding back to us as well.
Yeah, it builds its own language for good and negative. I mean, you've probably heard Instagram face, this idea that things become more homogenized. I feel the synth equivalent of that is a sparse wooden table with a cactus.
Oh,
right there, which is a great aesthetic. I love
I'm not mad at it, but it is.
It becomes the prevailing aesthetic overall, you know.
Yes. It does. It's happening everywhere. I like to tell myself I'm not participating in that, but I absolutely am. You're so right. I feel like I saw a question in the chat. How do you all save your module parameters and connections so you can easily recreate the same sounds? Like a notebook of settings you write down or snap a pic? Like with the DAW, it's so simple to click and save your settings. Yeah.
That's the beauty and the frustration. I don't.
Yeah.
And like I'll find something great. It's like, oh, I'm done. All right, I'm gonna unplug it and like I'll try to recreate it. And you never can.
You can't.
I have like sequencers and stuff that save the sequences and all that, but that's like the beauty of it. Because you're always kind of like you can get close. You can get to a similar feel or language, but it's always for me starting from scratch.
Yeah, I've never had that problem. I've never even tried to recreate anything. You
haven't taken the recreate your module challenge or your patch challenge.
I've never. It's very frustrating. Especially like I had this like sound. I'm gonna try to recreate it for this live settings. Like you never like. Sometimes you get something better, and sometimes you don't.
That's the exact point, right?
Fun of it.
Maybe it's a Buchla thing, but like, I mean, my setup is just very much like, everything serves a very unique purpose. You know what I mean? So like for me, like I don't feel like I have this problem of recalling anything or trying to get to a place that I'm trying to get to because there's only so many options. It's like if I'm gonna patch my complex oscillator, into the gate and get this certain sound out of it, like I only have one of those. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna that's what's gonna happen.
Totally true. And your like saving is, for me it's the sequencer. Like save the sequence.
Yeah, I have a few sequencers. Exactly, like I'm auditioning Brains as we speak. Like, I have the Scorp Pyramid that I'm using. What are you using for sequencing?
I have an Erica Black sequencer.
Okay.
And it's great, and I save everything, but then I like forget where it is. Like I can't, like what bank did I save this in? I don't know. I'll just start over.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, no. I kind of keep like a base patch in that system, but if I do like a special event or something where like maybe I've worked a little bit on a piece that I want to, like massage into a performance, then I'll save it off as like, a specific name. But yeah, I think like everybody has like that one thing that they, that they'll save, a starting point on.
And that's why like live I use a tracker, because
our buddy Grant. Do you know Grant? Bouvier.
MIDI Lizard
is his handle.
I think maybe.
He's sort of the. We make the joke that he's the Kevin Bacon of this.
That's right.
Stream, because he was the first person that we had one of these sessions with, and he referred somebody who ended up referring you. You know what I mean? So like we've only done a few of them, but like everybody's connected to him and everybody will be connected to him from now on because we're hoping that you'll refer us to somebody as well.
Definitely.
Yay!
And
we can keep this joke going then. I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, like it's sort of this ongoing thing.
We're all part of it now. We can't untangle ourselves. Definitely a lot of love in the chat for the idea that synths are for everyone, for all ages, and circuit bending. That's cool. So I saw that our timer went off again. So in our last 8-ish minutes here, I want to make sure that we shout out anything that you have going on. I know we put your Instagram link in there, which will lead everybody to the new album.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Yeah, the album is called Masked. I never know how to describe my music, right? That's a challenge. I've been calling it
sure.
I don't know, industrial techno, but very glitchy. But there's like prog synths. So
is there any vocals?
I've given up on vocals.
So, okay.
No vocals.
So instrumental techno,
Yeah, kind of industrial techno.
industrial techno, like rather than Detroit techno.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
almost like, I hate the term, like, IDM, kind of sort of tracker based music, I guess you could say. There's a lot of that too. So
Yeah. Okay.
that's the new EP. It just came out last Wednesday on Delusional Records, which I don't know if you've heard of that record label, but it's amazing. So anyone listening, definitely give them a follow. And they have a really great back catalog over the past year or so that I highly recommend every single thing they've released.
Wow, that's a huge endorsement. I love a good label recommendation, because then I'll just sit through and like literally binge the entire catalog, and I'll probably be doing that tomorrow. So thank you for that, and I'm excited to listen to your stuff. I checked out your Instagram, and I was like, cool, this is going to be a great opportunity to talk and chat about synth stuff. But I didn't get a chance to listen to your music, so I'm super excited to.
Now you can have the full label
to just binge out
experience.
on
I know
the
that's true.
label.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, and I will do that. So, and I love all those words that you use to describe your music. I love techno, period. So I'm excited to hear it. It's gonna be rad.
Well, yeah, I'm excited to hear what you think. Hear what y'all think.
Yeah. So now that we're synth friends.
Or are we? I mean, that's actually okay.
Yay!
I'll take that as a yes. We like to ask, it's a democracy here.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for, just like being willing to come on and meet and hang and do this ambiguous thing with us and like, come along for the ride and be open to it.
talking with synth people, like, of course.
Yeah, I love what you said earlier is that like, we're all into modular for a reason, and then we probably have a Venn diagram of other things and just like a vibe that we can all get along. We're all like very similar in a way that's like really core. It's like not maybe all of our life experience, but like this idea that we're all excited about this for the reasons that we discussed in this past chat. I think we pretty much hit all the points of like what those sort of esoteric things are that bring us together. There. I think we went pretty deep. Anybody have any questions for Meagan in the chat, or want more information about anything specific? Feel free to shout that out. And yeah, this is just.
I want so badly to just get like a little like overhead of like your setup, just like a like.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's do it.
Yes.
This is not my whole setup. This is again the eye candy. So
okay, we love it.
Put away, but I just got a Hydrosynth.
Okay.
Which I've like barely scratched the surface on, and it's incredible, and it's very modular, right?
Uh-huh.
So then this is my live case, and it's basically I've got two. I can do like melodies and bass lines, but it's very percussion focused.
Okay.
And this is like a bigger case.
Do you have like a lot of noise engineering stuff in that case?
I do.
Okay, yeah.
It's funny that you say that because my live setup, so I have a Basimila Saturatus altar that I trigger live, but I also use an Erica synth sample drum that I have a whole catalog of BIA samples that I trigger.
Sweet.
And then my Polyan tracker is loaded up with BIA samples too. So like I'll have a whole set of noise engineering based percussion on like 3 different machines.
That you've basically crafted. Yeah, I use my Buchla that way, where we actually have a Buchla sample library that we sell in our shop or whatever, but like that I want to actually update and can keep contributing to. But like I'll like there's certain sounds that like I'd rather just sample them out like once I've got them dialed in, and then that way I can reuse them and do all the fun things you can do with recordings. And then free the synth up to do other things, so I think that's a great idea and super cool that you.
Yeah, hot tip. You heard it here in the stream, everybody.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
If you check out my EP, I would say 80% of all of the percussion on the EP is Basimila Saturatus altar. by noise engineering, just in different contexts.
Yeah, such a rad company and rad people that run it. I've definitely listened to like a few of their pod mod episodes and stuff, and definitely a cool company that makes really interesting modules, like not just like the names, but like the functionality and stuff. They're doing stuff that nobody else is doing, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And there's something to be said for how nice they look too.
Right?
Yeah, I was going to say, they kind of check all the boxes.
Yeah, the design counts for a lot.
I agree. Well, I'm happy to hear that at least Jarukin is listening or has listened to Meagan's track on Bandcamp and says good stuff. So that's some feedback already.
Thank you.
It's coming in hot.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'll put your Instagram again in the chat. So everyone that's here, give Meagan a follow on Instagram and then listen to her music, especially the new EP, and feel free to let her know what you think of it, especially all positive feedback.
Hey, I'll take the negative too. I'm just interested in feedback in general.
I know. It's like, just whatever feedback you're going to give, just be like specific,
Exactly.
Tell me how it makes you feel, or like what mood it is for you, like if you like to put it on to clean your house, or if you like to put it on to like read a book. I like to know those kinds of things.
Yeah, me too.
Sweet. Well, that was amazing. I'm so impressed with us that we handled all these tech hurdles that we had, and we got to hang and meet, and we're even in different time zones. So this is like a time travel hang, which I love. And
the audio and video was the best.
The best we've had.
And like you got to experience that. And that, I think, is something to celebrate right there.
Yeah, there has not been a single complaint about the audio video connection that we have. So
it's so doable.
Way to go, everybody.
Yeah. And Daniel, you're part of this team.
Yeah. Daniel's our mod who also helps us with our tech and made this all possible so that we could have a smooth stream. So I'm so glad that we're friends now. This is obviously just the beginning, and we'll be staying connected in all the ways.
And I'll think of some people to nominate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. They have to come from you, because otherwise it breaks the chain with Grant. And that's really important to me to maintain. So I want Grant
no pressure. Just don't break the chain.
Don't break the chain.
Oh my goodness. That is so funny. Well, you have an amazing evening. I know it's a little earlier there. So enjoy your evening, and we'll talk soon. Bye. Oh man, I was trying not to have the get kicked out before we say goodbye moment, but it was right that I was saying goodbye as it kicked her out.
You're like, no.
Because it has the countdown, but then after a minute, it just says less than a minute and doesn't give you a countdown all the way to 0. I don't understand it. Okay. Thank you all for being here and being so lively in the chat. This is so fun. I love when we have good questions and like back and forth for the guests. We want them to feel welcome, and you all do an amazing job of that. So thank you for being here. And if you're new here, I don't know everybody who's here right now, but if you're new here, please give us a follow so we can stay connected. We do this every Thursday with a different person. We're trying to build a chain from our friend Grant all the way to the other side of the world. We'll see how far we get. We will be here Saturday for movie night. So if you join our Discord, you can vote before it's too late on the movie we're going to watch in our movie club. Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard, we're going to watch a movie. Sunday, we're going to do a stream where we do a giveaway, but also play synth music. So we hope to see you at all or any of those experiences. And we're so glad that you were able to be here. Thank you so much, Jurgen. You're such a good time. Adjust your oscillator release knob on the video to avoid cutting off the goodbye. If only. That's so funny. Oh, Grant, you were here too. Awesome. Good to see you. Great. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I feel like we had a really good chat that felt really like deep, but like we hit on some things that I hadn't quite connected before that I have been kind of floating out there for me. I had a great time. I love talking about stuff in this sort of like, it's deep, but not like you have to like be smart deep. Just like, you know, intuitively deep.
Gotta
Anyway,
be on a
I'm gonna
level.
cut myself off now. I'm so glad. Thank you, Obama's Weed Man. I'm so glad everyone is into this and enjoying it. Daniel, at some point, someone's
Makes
going
me
to-
happy.
Oh my gosh, you're right. At some point, the chain from Kevin Bacon, which is Grant Bouvier, Bitty Lizard, is going to come back to Gus. We're going to have to interview each other and ourselves. That will be amazing. How funny. All right. Well, you know,
That'll
as
be
always,
Twitch history.
as always, stay cosmic, friends. I want to rate somebody, but I cut myself off from using the internet while I'm doing this. So that I don't slow down
God.
the freaking stream. But in order to raid somebody, I have to be logged in. This is a whole situation.
I've never had to use my password to log into Chrome.
It's being so weird. Everything's being weird.
Oh, well,
Okay.
you have to restore.
Let's go to you know, I'm weird like this. I really like the idea that our friend Sid is like always streaming when we're streaming. So Sid is building, it looks like Sid's building a module of some kind right now. So we're going to check out that situation. Can you tell it's a little bit later for us than usual? The cantina music, thank you. Oh, that was weird, man. I was trying to think of that, and I'm just so tired that I couldn't. Thank you for saying that much. They're Muppets.
I reference that constantly, so.
Oh my god, you guys are so funny.
So glad that I channeled
That just made the whole night. That just made my whole week. All right, y'all. Let's go hang out with Sid, and we'll see you on Saturday or in the Discord.
And it was actually the Muppets, so you're both right. You've got a very cool synth there, son.